All right, got a great demo for everyone who has to be here in the office or working from home before the holidays. So I made sure this was it, just knock it out of the park. And what we're going to talk about today is ChatGPT, which has just hit the market about 2 weeks ago. There's millions of users already using it. Memory tricks and AZ-305, how all that fits together. You've seen my intro before, and you know I run a cloud group. I have about 700 people now, 700, and you can join if you want. It's free. And we're going to skip my standard intro and go right to a ChatGPT demo. So let's just skip the intro and go to a demo. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create educational content very rapidly with ChatGPT. And I'll show you that this is the real link. So let's go ahead and go to this link so you can see it's there. And I'm getting ready for the AZ-305 exam. It's the Azure Architect Cloud exam. And I'm going through all the documentation. And here's a nice one on the pillars of observability. So I'd like to create a small code kata out of this. So what would I do using ChatGPT? So first thing to do is I copy the text, okay? I'm going to go right at ChatGPT. And I'm going to ask it to do something for me. So let me bring up ChatGPT first. And there are millions of users that use it, and it may crash from time to time. And so they've actually put your sessions here, so you can click on one, go to a session if you want to go back. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a screenplay, and let's go to the next slide. And I want to do, no, actually not a screenplay. Let's generate 4 questions with 4 answers, 1 correct. Label the answers A, B, C, and D. So let's do that. So I'll put my text in there. All right. And then I'm going to go, I'll put that at the top. All right, let's see if we can do that for me. And what it's doing is actually generating 4 questions for me. Now, if you've done a lot of instructional design, you know this is such a pain in the you-know-what, trying to generate questions, making sure they're right, and pulling them from text. And so it actually has if you know about natural language processing, it has the ability to go in there and figure out what the main points are. And for this, it's able to generate questions. So yeah, so it did that, create questions for me. That's wonderful. Well, you know what I like to do now is I like to turn this boring information into a screenplay. So I'm going to ask it to generate a screenplay for me, okay? So go back and take that information here. And we could start where the questions are and just ask it to do that, but I'm actually going to ask it to clear context. So what it is that GTP actually remembers what you're doing. So if you just clear it, it clears the context and you kind of start over. So it'll kind of follow along and you can ask it to change things, to do different things to text as you do that. So I'm going to paste my text in here that I wanted to create the screenplay from. I'm going to put it here. I'll go and put it all together. And then I'll ask it the question to generate a screenplay. And I'm actually going to use human names. If you don't ask it to use human names, you'll say Tech 1, Tech 2, or IT Professional 1, or IT Professional 2. I'd like human names, so I asked it to do that for me. And if it generates the non-human names, you just ask it, oh, it generate the human names now, and it will. And we'll show you an example of that in a moment. Okay. So let's see if it can generate a screenplay for me. Hey, you're in your office and we see Jim, a software engineer, sitting at his desk, typing away at his computer. Suddenly, his coworker Sarah walks up to him. Hey, Jim, have you heard about the new monitoring tool Azure just released? No, I haven't. What is it called? It's called Azure Monitor. It collects and analyzes data from multiple sources to provide observability of a monitored system and so forth. So it's writing a nice little screenplay for me. But the thing I like in a screenplay is I'd like to have a crisis, right? Something that you have to solve. And maybe I want a little bit more information in here as well, but it seems to be doing a great job of explaining everything. All right. And so this is a lot less boring to read than the text you saw before. But, let's create a crisis. We're going to ask it to create a crisis for us. So let's go next. Let's say create a crisis for the characters to overcome and include more details in the text. Okay, let's do that. Put that in there. And now it knows what I'm talking about, okay? And so it's keeping the context, and it's going to take the same thing and create a crisis. We see Jim, a software engineer, sitting at his desk, typing away at his computer. Suddenly, his coworker Sarah walks up to him and is with a worried expression on her face. Jim, we have a crisis on our hands. The company's website has crashed, and we have no idea what's causing it. What do you mean it crashed? I mean it suddenly went down, completely went down. Customers can't access it, and the sales have come to a standstill. This is terrible. And then now they're going to work through all the details of the previous paragraph to solve the problem. Yep, they're figuring it out. It says the two quickly get to work, pulling up the Azure Monitor dashboard. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm just glad we had Azure Monitor. Yeah. I'm sure Microsoft loves that. Nice little commercial. All right, yeah. So it did that for me. But let's go on a little further. And I have my crisis now. I create computer code in Python that solves the crisis. Hey, can you write some computer code that actually solves the crisis? So let's put that in there. Oh, it's going to write some computer code for me in Python. That's going to fix my problem. I got import request, import JSON. Got my endpoint. Yeah. I got my API key. You want to put it there. So this is good code to get started with. There you go. Looking for unusual spikes or diffs in performance, so it gives you the code for that. How long do you think it'd take you to write that code? All right, now it's not only just write the code for you, it's actually going to explain the code and what the code's doing. And of course, it's just one approach. So you can modify it to fit your needs. Kind of what telling you that. Great, that's good. Well, I'm a tester, right? So I would like it to write tests for me. Let's see if it can do that. Hey, write tests for the Python code above. All right, let's see if it can do that. And let's make it plural. Now, if you do a misspelling, it doesn't matter. It tries to correct your spelling for you as well. Oh, it's going to write some tests for me. Example test. There you go. So as an educator, you can see this is extremely important for me. This is right out of the box usable for me because I'm all the time trying to create these little scenarios and teaching code and getting people engaged in a more engaging, not just a PowerPoint dump. And this creates a scenario for me from any type of text I want to. The questions, I don't have to write the questions. It creates a sample code for me to teach people with. But let's go one more step further. Lots of times I'd like to build a code kata. Okay, so let's see here. Let me just change if you don't mind. Let's have it outline the steps of a code kata for the above. Okay, let's do that. Above scenario and code. Let's try that. And hopefully it will figure that out. So let's put that in there and see what it does for me. A code kata is a structured practice session that helps you improve your coding skills. One, you got to set up the development environment. Yeah. Two, review the scenario and provide code to understand the problem. Three, plan to come up with a plan for how you use to provide the code to troubleshoot a website that crashed. Think about what you want to accomplish. Implementation. Write the code needed to implement your plan. Testing, test your code, and reflection. Reflection, take some time to reflect on the experience completing the code kata. Wow. Fantastic. Now and there you go. But I'm not done yet because there's another piece of software just released a while ago by OpenAI, and that's DALL-E, and that will automatically generate images for me. So if I go back to my scenario, I can start generating images that go along with the story. So let's see what the first part of the story was. Let's go back to our real story here. Let's go to the crisis story. All right, let's just take this right here and open up DALL-E, and let's put it in DALL-E and see if it can generate an image for us. There you go. And I'm going to go ahead and log in. All right, let's go into DALL-E. And what I'm going to do in this scenario, let's go ahead and review it real quick. This will be basically, we see Jim, a software engineer, sitting at his desk, typing away, and suddenly Sarah, a coworker, walks up, and she's with a word expression on her face. Let's generate an image for that. Now, this is not the image. You can see it just shows something real quick, and you can see the image bar generating there as it begins to create images for us. It will create 4 images. There you go. Well, these might work. We can use one of these. Or, this might work even better. Who knows? Either one. And you can play around and just continue to generate images all day. In this particular case, in my scenario here, we had a different scenario because it generated a different one. Sarah and Jack are frantically typing at their computers, their faces filled with concern. The sound of multiple alarms blaring fills the room. So they had a different scenario. So you see it's not giving the same scenario every time. It shows a crash of service as well. Kind of the same theme though. And then you can just keep generating images with DALL-E. And of course, you can use them because they're open source, right? So there you have it. And just in a matter of just minutes, I mean, this presentation is now 14 minutes old. We have generated what would take me. How long do you think it would take me to build all this code, Katas, and scenarios and images? How long do you think it'd take me, guys? Anybody want to guess?
Say an hour and a half.
Weeks. Weeks.
Wow. Wow.
Not 11 minutes. Weeks. So I got a question for myself. If you watch Anastasia in Tech, she actually goes over this and she asked a question, am I going to lose my job? Because this is obviously a disruptive technology, right? ChatGPT is doing stuff in like 11 minutes that typically takes me weeks, and then it has to go through reviews and everything else, and it's just literally weeks. So I did 11 minutes. What do you think? Am I going to lose my job? Also wrote code and tests for me.
No, but you'll have to adapt.
Right, and that's exactly what she says. If you don't use this technology, then you will lose your job. But if you adapt and you start using this type of technology to do your work, then you're going to stay in there. And what it is about the technology, what is fascinating is the way we do IT right now is like we're making a flute, and it's up on the lathe, you're putting in the holes, and everything is unique and custom. But really, we're going to move from that area of making flutes to playing the flute. We're actually putting together notes and sequences. So, software engineers and architects are going to thrive here because they're not down here in the weeds doing all this coding piece. They're actually putting systems together. And that's really where you need to concentrate your knowledge. You need to understand how things fit and what's right. Because it's a generative neural network. It means two networks are playing against each other, and it will always try to give you an answer. That answer may be right or wrong. You just need to know that. Okay. So that's where that high level of knowledge takes place. Okay. All right, we got enough time for the icebreaker. Here's an icebreaker. Go right into memory tricks. What is your favorite memory trick, and why does it work for you? Here are a few to choose from. Association, reinforcement, repetition, hands-on, acronyms, acrostics, chunking, rehearsal, maps, and memory palace. So does any of you guys use these techniques when memorizing things? And would you like to give us an example?
Hands-on.
Which one?
Hands-on, number 4.
You like the hands-on, right? I mean, if you've ever studied
Yeah.
for absolutely great answer. If you ever study for a cloud exam, you just find out it's a lot easier if you've got some hands-on, because you're just trying to memorize over and over the same thing, but you don't know what it is because you never experienced it. So if you get on the keyboard and you're building systems with the cloud, it's just a lot easier to prep and pass a cloud exam because it sticks in your mind. I can remember stuff I did with my hands years later, right? Yeah, absolutely. Good.
Repetition.
Repetition, right? Yep, that's right. What happens is when you learn something, you actually have an exponential decay in your mind, and so it really is like it fires and exponentially it begins to decay, and you want to hit it just right, just as you begin to forget it, repeat it again, so you get back up on the exponential curve. And when you do that enough times, then eventually it won't go away. It'll be in your permanent memory. Good answer. Repetition, yeah. Anyone else?
Rehearsal too.
Rehearsal. Actually, that is absolutely a great one. Have you ever heard the saying, if you want to learn something, teach it? Right?
Yes.
It's absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I have to tell you, when I started my cloud meetup, I had 8 certifications. I thought, well, I can teach people how to get certifications. Now I have 22. So it just shows you the power of actually teaching people how to do something. It just enhances and increases your knowledge. Yeah, those 3 good ones. Yeah. Hands-on, rehearsal, and repetition. Anyone got another one?
I use chunking.
Chunking, and that's a great one as well. Your mind can only hold like 7 to 9 digits, right, in a row. But if you chunk it but it can hold lots of chunks. So you chunk information into chunks, you can actually store more information. And the guy who memorizes pi to 300 places, he uses chunking and memory palace. And memory palace is where you actually have a room in your mind or your house, and you walk around and you put things in different places. And so to remember you chunk different pieces of information, you put those chunks in different places in the memory palace, and you walk around and you see them. And then what you do is you do like this encoding, enhanced encoding. And what you do is you don't just put the piece there, but you put some type of scenario where it's like bizarre or something weird happens, or it's bigger than life, right? So one of the things, and I have maps in here as well, so we'll move on from here, but one of the things I do as I'm preparing for the AZ-305, I'm concept mapping out everything. And so whenever I have a question, I concept map where it comes from and how I'm answering it. And then I'm actually using this to build a scenario. So I built a scenario using it, and one was with Batman and Catwoman. And of course, I use ChatGPT to do all this with, and all these images are generated by DALL-E. I don't have to, so everything's there. I'll go ahead and show this to you real quick so you can see it. And so what this enables me to do, and I'm going to go to my course right here. Give me a moment. I'm going to preview the Catwoman course. So in the preview here, I actually, what's really cool about this is you have the ability to do something different now, because you're thinking at a higher level. So you have this, Batman sits at his computer staring intently at the screen. Catwoman watches from intently at the screen. So here we go. And what are you doing? And then you go to the scenario, and then you have a question and answer based upon the scenario. And then what you can do is start using some of these memory techniques. You get to go to the next question. The next question, you kind of repeat what the answer is going to be. So you didn't get the answer in the first one, but the answer is here. And then you go into another scenario, and you're kind of building a memory palace as you go from this, and you're actually using repetition learning, because this the last answer about the last one's about access review. She starts off by talking about access review, and you go to a crime scene, you're actually experiencing a story. And we were able to do this in the past. It's not something that you couldn't do. Typically, if you go to these, matter of fact, every time when you go to these question sets, there's no scenario like this. There's no story being built up. There's no memory palace. There's no memory tricks being used. And the reason they aren't is not because we haven't been able to do them. It just is so time intensive to build all that stuff. With ChatGPT, you can accelerate that and build them very rapidly. So now you can actually move to a higher level of understanding and not concentrate on the mechanics of the question, but building a story interaction using memory tips to help people, grasp the knowledge. And it just walks you through the scenario. Then there's an explosive that Catwoman needs to find and put out. And that's Catwoman jumping over the buildings, looking for the explosives and dealing with text from different areas. So, the story just moves on. It's a story. There's 3 scenarios here. And she's helping the techs, solve their problem, and it just goes on from there. And then when you repeat the question set the second time, the story, you have a memory palace, and that reinforces your learning. So it's something cool that you can do with this new technology that would be too time intensive in the past. And kind of what's happening here is we're really, if you know Maslow's hierarchy of needs, ChatGPT pushes you above the widget makers and pushes you into that, what a lot of, if you read Dan Pink's book, the 3 things that, IT professionals need: sense of purpose, mastery and autonomy. That's where ChatGPT allows you to live. And it is a little bit apocalyptic, I think. Stephen Hawking went to his grave talking about the apocalyptic scenario of the AI, and one is that all knowledge will increase in the apocalyptic scenario. So I think that's interesting. And then another one, I don't know if you're familiar with apocalyptic writings, the one that the Earth will wobble. Well, if global warming does occur, then the ice caps will melt, the mass will change of the Earth, and it will wobble. So there you go. And what do I think about it? I love it. I want more of it, because this technology just gives me wings, and like I said, you just saw it. Would it take me weeks to do? I did 11 minutes. And so what should I say? Well, it has value, right? I mean, that's the sobering question. That's a lot of stuff that took a lot of time to build that was considered very valuable can be done in minutes. So I leave you with that question. Think about what has value. All right, that's it. What do you guys think? We made it, 23 minutes. Any questions?
Mike, after our initial discussion, I went through and installed ChatGPT.
All
I
right.
explored it.
Yeah.
But it looks good.
Yeah.
I was trying to find how it works, the model, right? That's nowhere in the internet.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I know the billions of data inside, which
Yeah.
constructs and gives the output, whatever we ask for,
yeah,
including DALL-E codecs,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But I'm sure that's the future. But
yeah.
if you get an answer about that, how they build the model, let me know. I'm just curious.
It is there's three things they're doing. Two is it's a generative network, and so basically what happened was about 5 years ago, they took this from gaming, and in gaming, you have you have an opponent, and as you move around and do things, the opponent gets smarter. So it's like two neural networks competing with each other. So a chat, when you put something in a chat, it will try to give you an answer to that, like it's a generative network. And then the other thing they did is they used reinforcement learning. So they went in there and they looked at code and they said, well, that's good code, that's bad code. So they only trained on good code. So that's why it's actually when people are putting stuff in there, it's surprised because they're really getting good code. And it's a massive neural network. So OpenAI had their original GDP that they released was 187 billion, I believe, parameters. That's the neural net. And this one is approaching 1 trillion, and they're optimizing it. And they want to go to 100 trillion, but it's not just the number of parameters, it's also optimizing the code which they're working on. So it's actually using the number of parameters that it's actually optimizing. It's the generative neural networks, like one competing against the other, and it's also the reinforcement learning, using, looking at it and like using people to decide what's good and not good before they put it into the training. So you don't have so you don't have a bunch of crap in there. The other thing they've done that's really important is they put some measures on it to not allow people to abuse it. Okay, so if you put something in there that's inappropriate, it'll tell you it's inappropriate. I actually it made my wife very mad, but I wrote her a love note using ChatGPT, and she told me you don't ever do that again as long as you live. And ChatGPT told me you really shouldn't do that because you should communicate with your wife and not use a machine. So it will chew you out. So there you go. And it's good they put those limits on there because when they've tried to get technology out there in the past like this, people have abused it, and then it just people don't want to get in there and see a bunch of junk, right? So yeah, did that kind of answer your question?
Yes.
I think you
But
learned.
still, the research is on for that.
I know. I also asked if it was recording my interactions, and it said it's not recording exactly what I type, but it's using what I do to improve its neural net. So now you have millions of people interacting with it, and it's just getting smarter. I think too, if you haven't seen neural nets before, if you go to tensorplayground.org, you can see a neural net actually play around with a visual neural net. Let me do that for you real quick, since we have a minute. Here, the TensorFlow Playground. And if you're not familiar with neural nets, this is kind of a nice little visual to get started with. And what neural nets do is they have data, and they train it on data, and then when it's trained, and they run other data through it to see if test it, see if the training was good or if it was overtrained. So you can see this is an example of a neural net actually trying to figure out what the dimensions are, how to encircle the inside data. And so what happens is this neural nets actually can work in millions of dimensions, right? And so it's not restricted by dimension. And so that's how these problems are solved. They're solved in higher dimensions.
Thanks a lot for sharing this. A lot of information which think through
Oh.
how
Oh.
powerful it is.
Yeah, he's like of a university.
Thanks, guys. Well,
Thank you, Mike.
I guess they have me in the right job. Well, I appreciate you guys attending. I wish you guys a very, very Merry Christmas. And I'll get this recorded and I'll get the link sent out to you guys, okay?
I wish you the
Thanks, Mike.
same.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have
Stay
a great
warm,
day.
everyone. Yeah.
You too. Stay well. And Merry Christmas.
Likewise.
Bye-bye.
Bye.